Welcome, my friends, to our Divine Destiny study today in Come Follow Me. We're looking at King Benjamin and Mosiah and the words that King Benjamin shares with all of the people prior to his anointing his son, King Mosiah. And he's called all of these people together at the temple. And you remember, we've talked about this idea of do we come? Do we come to the temple? Do we pitch our tents towards the prophets and towards general conference, so to speak, towards all of the words of the Lord? And as that happens, then we're going to start very quickly into what is it that King Benjamin had to say to these people. But pause. I want us to stop right here. As soon as I read the very first words, and this happens every time that I read these words, my mind races back to 1993 as King Benjamin shares these words. And it's in verse 9, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I want to race back to 1993, and it was President Gordon B. Hinckley was holding a press conference. And this press conference was to announce a new building in Utah. Now, it wasn't new. It was a building that had been there for over 100 years or right at 100 years, and it was 149 years since the time that Joseph Smith had been martyred. And there was a building in Utah that used to be called Hotel Utah. In fact, it was a historical building that had been designated such by the Utah Historical Society. And so it was very prominent, big. I'd been there as a kid, beautiful, lovely building. President Hinckley was holding a press conference, and in this press conference, he made an announcement that this building was now going to be renovated and changed into a building that was going to serve as, and the name of the building was going to be known as the Joseph Smith Memorial Building. And it was going to serve all sorts of functions, both for church offices and community events and all kinds of things. And as the press conference wound down and he started to take questions, everybody started firing questions back at him and saying, well, what can we do this? Have you thought of this? And all sorts of questions, wondering if this was the right thing to do. And President Hinckley, if you go back and watch this press conference, it was very fascinating to me. He kind of smiled and he kind of held up his hand and he says, I think that many of us here have confused what we're meeting here today for. He said this was an announcement, not a discussion. And he kind of laughed a little bit, and I thought to myself, that is incredible. How many times in our lives do you and I come to the Lord, so to speak, come to the general conference, the temple, anything to do with what the Lord has to share with us, and we come looking for a discussion as opposed to an announcement. So let's read these words from King Benjamin. This is what King Benjamin says, and as I said, it reminds me very much of what President Hinckley said. He said in verse 9, these are the words which he spake. Okay, this is the words that King Benjamin spake. He said, my brethren, and all ye that are assembled yourselves together, that you can hear my words which I speak unto you this day. For I have not commanded you to come up hither to trifle with the words which I shall speak, but that you should hearken unto them, and open your ears that ye may hear, and your hearts that ye may understand, and your minds that the mysteries of God may be unfolded unto your view. Now, my friends, we're going to go on, and there's going to be some incredible teaching that takes place in this address by King Benjamin. As I've stated before, some of the most valuable that will guide and can guide your and my life. But before we even get to the council, I want to stop for a moment and ask me and ask you, have we come up to trifle with the words, not just of King Benjamin, but of conference? Remember, first we talked about getting ourselves there. Is my tent pitched towards the prophet, pitched towards the Lord, so that I can listen and learn? But once I've done that, do I come thinking to make it a discussion when it wasn't a discussion? It was an announcement, and maybe even more than an announcement. Maybe, just maybe, it was a commandment. And